In this lesson, I would like to try to define the field of political geography. And unfortunately, as a general observation, I find that disciplines like to say of themselves that they can't be defined, or that they defy definition. I find that's the case even in rather technical fields, and so it's fairly common to not give definitions of different academic fields. In my lecture on what is geography, you know that I tend to define fields by their centers rather than their boundaries, and oftentimes people get caught up if they're going to give a definition on what a boundary of a discipline is, but I like to stay with what the core of different disciplines is. But, as you know, I don't subscribe to the idea that everything is so difficult to define. And in fact, when I'm thinking about academic disciplines, I personally like to start with a foundation that tells me what the subject matter of a field is going to be, and then I also like to define terms and objects that we would study inside those fields so we know exactly what we're supposed to be studying. So in this lesson, I'm going to try to provide you with a definition of political geography, even though I'm sure that it would generate some discussion and debate among different political geographers. Of course, from earlier lessons about what geography is, you know that geography literally means earth writing, or to write about or to describe the earth. But what about this word politics? What is politics? Or what does it mean for something to be political? Well, when someone talks about politics in the United States, it's frequently the case that he or she is talking about the government. When you think of politics and politicians, you might think of senators and congressmen in the House of Representatives, or in the state legislature, or even the President of the United States. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon to hear someone say that they don't get into politics, or don't like politics, or don't follow politics. And this means they have a particular attitude toward the government. That's probably what they're trying to convey. But the problem is that this word politics is used in more situations than those that are just concerned with the government. So that precludes us from saying something rather simple about the definition of politics. For instance, that politics is about the government in some way. I've heard people say that they left their job because the environment was too political. The company they were working for was too political. Sometimes people talk about the politics within groups of friends, even people politicking behind their back. Politics can even become part of family affairs. I've heard of family reunions and get-togethers described as political, and not just because of the dinner table conversations about the government. Family members politicking in the background to manipulate how the family is going to be run, or who receives what as inheritances. So we have the word politics being applied at a few different scales here. We could be talking about the government of the United States, or about the government of other states around the world. But we can also potentially apply this word to friends and even family. Here lies the foundations for one of the arguments for simply saying that this word politics cannot be defined. Some arguments that go along this route say that we don't need a definition of what it means for something to be political because you and I at least intuitively know what situations or to what phenomenon this word should be applied to, and that works well enough. Some might argue that these situations really do have nothing in common, and that what we're just looking at is things that resemble one another in different ways. Yet we all know politics when we see it, and therefore we're capable of using the term and using it effectively to communicate information. I have a different take on this, and I think we can identify what is common to all of the situations to which we can apply this term politics. I argue that what it means for something to be political means that it involves group decision-making. A political process is the method by or through which groups of people make decisions. That emphasis on group decision-making is the core of what it means for something to be political. Think about decisions that are least likely and perhaps impossible to be political. If it only involves you, if it's a decision that only you have to make, whether you watch one YouTube video or another when you're home alone at night, you're not going to be involved in a political process. It's simply whatever you choose to do. However, as soon as you involve another person, two or more people, and they have to decide what they are going to do, even for simple tasks like what movie to watch, that becomes a political process. So group decision-making is what I believe to be the core of politics, and thus the core of a variety of disciplines that study politics. I think this is the commonality in all of these different situations in which we use the term. In the United States, it's absolutely the case that at the level of the federal government, we have politics. There are many people in the United States. In fact, at the time I'm recording this lecture, about 314 million people. That's a very large group of people, and there are certain decisions that must be made as a group. So the process by which 314 million people come to some kind of decision can be a very complicated political process. The federal arrangement and the representative democracy with 3 branches of government and all of the bureaucracy can be very complicated, and if you survey all of the different forms of government that have been experimented with in the course of human civilization, you will find many different techniques and methods for groups to make decisions. Representative democracy is but one of them. In other circumstances, a single person, an absolute monarch, may make all of the decisions for the group. Is that a political decision? Absolutely it is. In that particular case, the group of people has decided that they will do whatever it is that this person wearing a crown tells them to do. And when that person dies, everyone agrees to do whatever it is the person's eldest son tells them to do. That's a political process, and monarchies in various forms have been very popular for group decision-making throughout history. What if you came upon a group of people who are all building a giant structure? You ask, why are you building this giant structure? And the people say that it's because the person over there, and they point, told them to do so. And then you ask, well, why are you doing this and going to all of this work and trouble just because that person over there told you to do it? They answer, because he's got a gun, and if we don't do what he says, he'll kill us. Is that a political process? Again, absolutely. The group has decided to do whatever that it is that person decided to tell them to do because they are feeling threatened. And in fact, this is a very simplified version of what it means to have a dictator in charge. So you might think about all of the different ways groups make decisions, and you might ask yourself if some of these processes are better than others, or if there is indeed a best way for groups to make a decision. Much of political theory, and especially political philosophy, revolves around exactly the question of how groups should make decisions. So what if we move to a different scale? Earlier we said that there could be politics between groups of friends or within families. The commonality is that in these situations, they are still about groups coming to a decision. Whenever you get 2 or more people together, such as friends on Friday night, you have to decide what bar to go to or what movie to watch, or if you should be engaged in a different form of entertainment altogether. And there will be a political process that decides this. Different groups of friends probably have very different methods for making that decision. Maybe they take turns. Maybe there's one person that the friends always turn to who decides their evening activities. Maybe that person is their social coordinator and is most familiar with all of the great places around town to go. If so, then that person has a lot of political power in the group. At least a lot of power over the decisions that the group chooses to make together regarding where to go in the evening. We've probably all been in a situation where one friend in a group gets upset because the group never does the kind of activities that he or she would like to do. Hopefully, though, whatever process the group chooses, consciously or unconsciously, to make these decisions is a very amicable one, and one in which everyone thinks the best decision was reached. But regardless, the group's decision was made through a political process. In the case of family and friends, the groups involved are much smaller than the populations of entire states. But nevertheless, we probably all know people who are good at politicking. What you are probably getting at when you say someone is good at politicking is that they are pretty good at manipulating or otherwise influencing the group's decisions, however it is that that group makes decisions. Maybe in a particular family there's an older grandmother who makes group decisions for the family, and one family member is always over at her house, bringing her little presents or taking care of things for her. Then, surprise, the decision that the grandmother starts to make for the group start to favor that family member over the whole group. That's politics in the family. You might be upset about that, and there are certainly both moral and immoral ways that you could use to influence the decision of a group. As the decision that the group has to make is something that's going to have greater and greater impact, You can probably expect there to be more politicking and probably an increase in the less moral methods of influencing group decision-making. I tend to put several disciplines together under the umbrella discipline of political studies. Political science is a particularly notable one. Political scientists use scientific methodologies to study how groups of people make decisions and also the effects of those group decisions. Political anthropology studies group decision-making throughout the history of human development. Political sociology focuses on studying societal groups and how they make decisions. I've mentioned political philosophy already. It's often concerned with the values of group decision-making, rights, ethics, and justice. Then, of course, there's political geography, and we'll look at it specifically in more detail in the next lesson. But even though all of these subfields may be part of different formal disciplines, at least according to the ways that our disciplines are typically divided within universities today, their commonality is the study of how groups make decisions, even though each has a different emphasis and focus depending upon the home discipline from which they came.